Good morning and welcome to A Better World with Julann and Fran. I'm Julann.
And I'm Fran, and today we have a very special guest, Laura Zam, who's an author, a speaker, and the founder of Pleasure Literacy LLC. Welcome, Laura.
It's
Welcome. Thank you.
my pleasure to be here.
How is it that you're doing things to make the world a better place?
Well, I think that I am helping people to better manage their mental health and, in particular, their resilience during a very chaotic and difficult time in our lives collectively, and for many people in their personal lives.
Wonderful. And can you talk a little bit? You mentioned that you're an author. Can you talk a little bit about your book or your books that you've published?
Sure. So I'm going to talk about the book that is not yet published that I'm working on, and then I'll talk about the book that came out 5 years ago because my work comes out of that first book, but it's a little bit of a pivot. And so my new book is working title called Steep, and it's a book in which I visit one unique and fabulous tea house in each of the 50 states, plus the District of Columbia where I
Okay.
live.
Cool. That sounds fun.
It's a lot of fun. I'm visiting these tea houses for a variety of reasons. So, one layer of the book, one reason is because I'm obsessed with tea houses and I want to expose readers to this immense diversity and kind of secret charm of different kinds of tea houses, and want to make a point through the book that they are everywhere. They are in every state, in fact, big cities and tiny little towns. So that's one layer of the book. Another layer of the book is I am talking about America at this time because I'm going out and I'm investigating the fabric of our country, and I'm looking at in to some degree the mental health of each state and how that might um, how that particular tea house might be helping people in that community in terms of their own mental health resilience. And then I'm talking also about my own role as a caregiver for my husband and how these tea houses have become very instrumental in me keeping myself afloat, rejuvenating myself, and working continuously on my own mental health, uh, living with someone who has a chronic illness.
Oh,
So nice.
yes,
Oh, no.
that is wonderful. And when you visit these tea houses, do you get to speak to the people who have created them and ask them why they did? And what kind of responses are you getting?
Well, a lot of the a lot of the reasons why they've opened the tea houses interlap. So they might use words like community, sanctuary, calm, pause, conversation. All of these words are very resonant for me, and they all point to a kind of sanctuary. And I feel that there's an alignment that they have with each other, whether or not they're in conversation. And some of them are in conversation with each other, and some of them are not. But I feel like there is a collective uh, movement,
Connection. Right.
connection. Yes.
That's so nice. Yeah.
And even a movement to create third spaces that can help people in their deal with the difficulty, let's say, or even the everyday stress of their lives, and deal with the chaos and the magnitude of problems in our world, our society, our country. So I'm just yes, so when I talk to them, and I am starting my own podcast interviewing
Right.
each of them so that I can really dig in and showcase their tea houses in that way, and also really get into the nitty-gritty of their rationale. But another thing that's very important, I think, in terms of their own motivation is that these are tiny businesses, and so they are acts of love. These are acts of love. creating these spaces for people. No one's getting really rich off of these small restaurants. And some one woman in Tennessee, her tiny her her tea house is actually a literal tiny house. And so it could only seat a maximum of 4 people at a time, right? So
Oh,
these are
nice.
not
That's
huge.
right. That's
That's the
okay.
smallest.
Yeah.
So they're not getting rich. So I think that that is an important point, that these are acts of love. And I think another important point is that for the most part, I believe all of the tea houses that I've showcased survived the pandemic. And so the survival of the pandemic points to their own resilience.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I feel like in this country, tea gets sort of short shrift. It's
Sorry. Yeah.
yeah, it's like the second drink you might, or the third drink you might get at a Starbucks or something like that. And coffee is all around. And I didn't really even realize until you mentioned that you were doing this book that there are tea houses in existence.
Mhm.
Yes. And Julann, are you also in LA?
No, I'm in New York. I'm in Rockland County, New York. So I'm
Oh,
upstate. I have my granddaughter here. Usually I sit inside, but she's here. She's 7 and she's got a lot of energy this morning. And she's playing with a Furby that I felt like maybe we should not have on our podcast today. So I came to sit outside. But
okay. Well,
there's
I do want to give you a couple of tips because, Fran, there is a fantastic tea house in LA. Um, it's called Tea at Shiloh, Shiloh. It's in the Arts District, and it's a late night tea house.
Oh,
It's
nice.
third
That
space.
sounds great.
It's fantastic. It's a third space where you can go. That's what they started with. They also have now an ability to go during the day, and they have a couple of ways that that a couple there are a couple of ways that couple of ways that they do that. But they started with this late night tea house concept, which is very innovative. And I went, and it's fantastic. And the woman who started it, her name is Shiloh, and she started it because she was in San Francisco and she was hanging out at a tea house and it closed like 3 or 4 p.m. or something like that. And she said, "Oh, I love it here. And I feel really safe. I feel safe as a sensitive person, doesn't like a lot of loud noise. And I feel safe as a woman being alone in a space." And
Nice.
so she said, "Why aren't there spaces like this where people can hang out at night?" And a lot of people in the sober movement are attracted to tea houses for obvious reasons. So, anyway, I wanted to just tell you that. And I don't know a whole lot about upstate New York, but I do know that Beacon, which is across the river from you,
Hmm.
and has a lot of tea houses. And
Really?
so, yes, they have
That's nice.
like 5 different kinds of tea houses. There's a Turkish tea house, there's a matcha place, there's a tea shop that also I think you can get tea there and hang out. So anyway, just a
I'm gonna
couple of
have to look it up. That's really cool. I'd be interested in visiting. I think it's a great concept to have something you love and have a new experience and be in a calm place where you can regenerate and you know what I mean? Just relax and do something nice. I like that.
exactly.
It's interesting. You mentioned earlier, Laura, that some of the people who've created the tea houses use the word calm, and I always associate tea with calmness. It's like if I feel like I want to read a book, I always think of a cup of tea. And if I want to just sit around and listen to music, tea. You know, and it's very, the warmth of it, even just holding the cup and feeling the warmth in your hand and the steam that rises from, oh, there you go, look at that. And
Yeah.
it is a very calming beverage. And I love the idea of community, bringing people together for community. Excuse me. Now, I was raised in a very middle American sort of household. So when we said tea, what we meant was Lipton tea with milk and sugar in it. But I know Julann was raised by two Irish parents from Ireland, right? So now when your parents said tea, did they ever mean like a meal?
No, they meant usually tea. And they did some fun stuff when we were kids growing up. Like I don't know if it, I mean, it was fun for us. Like we'd walk to school, and sometimes we would have breakfast in the morning. And my mom was a big cook, so she made a lot of cool stuff. But sometimes we'd have cereal, and instead of milk, we'd have tea in it.
Oh,
Really?
Yeah, so it reminds me too of a calmness and of course of my parents. And when you're sick, I always, like my granddaughter, I'd say her throat is a little scratchy. I'll make you tea when we get home. And it's just, it has such a calming effect, you know? I love it. I mean, I drink coffee all the time. I'm not really a big tea drinker, but I like this whole concept. I think it's really nice.
Yeah, and drinking tea does not preclude drinking coffee. I drink
Right.
coffee.
No, I know. I know. Yeah.
And so sometimes people think, oh, I don't want to go to the tea side because I love coffee too much. But it's just a different experience.
Yeah, right.
People
Fun
say coffee is for drinking and tea is for sipping.
and enjoying. Right.
and that brings me to your other book. Could you talk a little bit about your other book?
Yes, sure. So I am a sexologist by training, and I'm an accidental sexologist. I was in the theater for many, many years, and that's how I know Fran. I don't know if she told you. We were in the
No.
theater department at
Yes.
Brooklyn College
Right.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
back in the day, and I went into the theater, and I was there solidly for 30 years, and my specialty became writing one person plays.
Oh,
And
nice.
they were fictional for a long time, and then progressively they got more and more autobiographical. And I wrote a play. Well, I got a play commission in 2013, 2012, actually. Actually, it was 2011 because I finished the play in 2012. In 2011, I got a play commission to write a one-person play about anything that I wanted to write about. And I had recently gotten married, and I had a lot of sex problems that were associated with childhood sexual abuse. And so I decided that I was going to write a play about trying to heal because I didn't know how to heal. I didn't know what the core of the problem was. I felt very overwhelmed by even trying to figure it out because I didn't know, is this childhood trauma still 40 years later? Like, what, why? I mean, I had so much therapy at that point. I was like, what's going on? I was like, well, maybe this is just marriage. I don't know. I hadn't had many very stable relationships. So I thought maybe I just don't know about long-term relationships and maintaining intimacy. I thought maybe it's about female sexuality. I didn't feel like I knew very much at all about women's pleasure. So because I didn't know how to figure it out, but I did know how to structure an art project, I said, I'm going to use this playwriting process to figure out how to heal, or at least figure out how to investigate it, give myself a kind of structure for investigating my sexual problems, which were numerous. I had pain issues and many other things. And so I did this, and I figured out a lot, or I started to figure out a lot. And I wrote the play, and it got into the New York International Fringe Festival and another festival off Broadway and
Wow.
sorts of things. And then I started to publish pieces, essays about the same topic, and I was able to publish some pieces in high profile publications, and that brought eventually a book deal. And so I decided to, and along the way, I decided two things. One is I would just continue the project because it took me 6 months to write this play, and I was not healed from 40 years
Right.
of right of trauma and other things. And so I just decided to continue this investigation, and that would all go into this book. And I also decided that I would become a certified sexologist, sexuality educator. That's the official title. I'm a certified sexuality educator And I decided I would do that because I got very angry about the lack of education that was available for women about their own bodies and their own pleasure. And I wanted to work directly with women, teaching courses, workshops, other things like that. So my work with pleasure really is the foundation. My work with sexual pleasure is the foundation for pleasure literacy, even the foundation for my book, because I found that pleasure, dopamine, is so controversial, but not when we're talking about the bedroom and we expect women and people born female at birth to just like turn it on, and know this and know their bodies and have a good relationship with pleasure. And yet almost all the women I work with have a fraught and severed relationship with any kind of pleasure, including just being able to savor a cup of tea.
And what's the title of that book?
Oh, that's called The Pleasure Plan.
Wonderful. Okay. And is it available? Do people have to get it from your website, or how do people get a copy of it?
Oh, it's a traditionally published book, so you can get it at Amazon or any independent bookstore. You probably have to request it, and that's a good thing for me.
Right,
But
very
you can also get it on major websites like Amazon, barnesandnoble.com, that kind of thing.
Oh, excellent. And now you went and you spoke on the subject in some areas. And when you went and spoke on this subject in some areas, were you ever told to limit your speech?
You mean speaking on women's sexuality?
Yeah.
Well, most of the speaking that I have done has been to audiences, and the invitation has come from organizations that knew the topic and were eager for the information. For instance, I speak on college campuses. I empower women to understand more about their bodies and pleasure, to have more equitable relationships. And I feel strongly that that conversation or that knowledge has to be part of a consent conversation. And I also do other kinds of assault prevention on campuses, but I always include this kind of mutual pleasure aspect of it. So that's a receptive audience who's interested in sex education. But in making a pivot to doing presentations in workplaces, I'm careful. I'm careful, and
yeah.
I feel out the organization. To what degree do I say my theories and my practices and my whole philosophy stems from a background and a foundation in sexology, because I find that that can be scary. And even using the word pleasure has been quite a journey for me, because when I very strongly wanted to use the word pleasure, including in these workplace presentations, and very early on in talking to colleagues and mentors, etc., when I've proposed this pleasure literacy, for instance, as something, a way, an umbrella to talk about all of my work, but specifically talk about resilience, mental health, I had a lot of pushback. People were like, no, 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 you cannot use that word. You cannot use the word pleasure in the workplace. It's
Silly, very silly.
very silly, very silly. So I've just leaned into it.
Can I ask, do you find that this journey that you're on has helped you deal? As you said, it was 40 years, you had therapy, you did so many things to try to overcome the issue. Do you feel all of this has helped you
Oh
with,
yeah, I feel like I healed. I mean, I still have some conditions that I manage. Menopause, things changed when I went through
right?
menopause. For instance, I have something called provoked vestibulodynia, which means it's nerve endings uh, outside the vagina, like right outside the vagina. There's like a area of skin, and those nerve endings can proliferate. There can be extra nerve endings, especially after menopause. It's another pain condition that's not often talked about, and many gynecologists don't know about it, which is confusing for women,
Yeah,
because you may go for, let's say, pain with intercourse related to penetration, postmenopausal changes vaginally, and the gold standard is to hand you estrogen. But this skin right outside the vagina, this skin, it's called the vestibule, that area outside the vagina, but inside the inner labia, that vestibule responds to testosterone. And when you have pain in that area, it's because menopause has also depleted your testosterone. So, uh, all this to say, yes, it's helped me enormously because
That's
I
great.
understand it, because I went from having no libido, not understanding sexual desire whatsoever, to feeling like, oh, I have this incredible desire, because it's not like I go around thinking about sex all day long. It's because I opened up a channel in myself. I opened up a pathway, a neural pathway, where I know how to really how to connect any kind of pleasure to sexual pleasure if I so desire that kind of experience.
Knowing yourself better, right? I mean,
Yes.
that's the bottom line. You've accomplished that, and that's great. And I think we all need, in every aspect of our lives, need to spend more time getting to know our own body and our own mind and our own heart, and trying to put ourselves first sometimes. So
Yes.
that's great.
Yeah, because I think, and we've discussed this before on the podcast, a lot of times women are raised to serve and to give and to nourish and to take and to give care,
Right.
and all of those things are great for everyone to do. And it shouldn't be more so the female's job than the male's.
Right.
That's right.
Mm.
That's right.
Now,
Yeah.
what,
Comprehensive.
yeah, absolutely. When you're speaking to audiences, are there certain questions that you hear a lot?
Uh, well, it depends on what I'm talking about. When I'm talking about tea, people want to know a few things. One is, what is a tea house? That's my number one question.
Wow.
Yeah, and that is a great question, because it's not something that most of us know about. So what that is, so that's part of the book, and my work around it is an education that there are these things called tea houses, and they may not even go by that name. They may be called tea rooms, tea bars, tea cafes. It may be tea and coffee. Tea and coffee something. Um, those are the main names: tea bar, tea room, tea lounge. Sometimes it's called a tea
Hmm.
lounge. Yeah, yeah,
Oh, that's so interesting. I knew none of that.
No,
yeah.
me.
Do you find that, let's see, that there's a particular type of person that you attract to your talks?
That's a great question. Again, I talk about sex and I talk about resilience. So they're different audiences. When I
Right.
talk about sex, I often attract women who have a similar situation to what I had when I started that journey that eventually became my book, which is that they struggle with physical intimacy and can't figure it out, and they feel broken. That's often my audience, and also my clients, really, right? I think we attract clients who maybe have a similar have been on a similar journey, or would like to go on a journey that we've been on. So that is a part of my audience. But then there are other audiences, sometimes a little mix between the sexology and the resilience. Um, I've spoken a few times for an organization for people who have endometriosis and other pain conditions, especially pelvic pain conditions. So they're dealing with chronic pain. That is a resilience issue, but also I have been able, in talking to them, to say, okay, and also this is what you can do in terms of any intimacy that you're engaged in if you've got pelvic issues. But with regard to the resilience work, right now I'm building upon a lot of work that I've done previously in education spaces, working with teachers, education administrators, higher ed administrators. I talked about my working in higher ed directly with students. I'm also venturing into healthcare. I just did a presentation for medical school. So yeah, so it's
That's good.
yeah, it's different audiences. For the most part right now, I'm mostly seeking speaking work for around resilience and mental health in the workplace, but I am looking at healthcare and education as as industries, we could say, to target. In terms of the sexology, I'm not as focused on it right now because I'm working on this new book and building around that. But yeah, when that comes up, it mostly grows out of courses that I continue to run and coaching that I continue to do.
Oh,
Excellent.
yes, that really is wonderful. And you are certainly making the world a better place.
Thank you.
Absolutely. When people want to contact you, what is the best way for them to do it?
Just laurazam.com.
Okay.
And also on Instagram. Instagram's a really good place because
Okay.
I post a lot. And my handle on Instagram is Laura Zam Pleasure, one word.
Nice. And if there's something, if there was one thing that you'd like people to take away from this, one thing you'd like them to know, what would it be?
That pleasure is a portal to relaxation. It's not a diversion. It's not necessarily dangerous to seek it out, even to seek out dopamine hits and all these things we're told to avoid in this digital age. There are complexities with regard to tricky aspects to working with pleasure because there's a short list for each of us, for the most part, that contains pleasures that can be compulsive for us or things we're attracted to that are not good for us. Like, let's say somebody is likes to eat a lot of ice cream at night and it makes them feel lousy, right? It may not even be compulsive, but it's just something they're drawn to that doesn't, something they really like that doesn't like them back. Right? So there is a short list for all of us, and I think for almost everybody these days, our phones can be problematic in terms of a kind of compulsion, and they're designed that way to overly stimulate our dopamine and all of those sorts of things, which can leave us depleted and mess with our neurochemicals.
Yeah.
However, there's a much longer list of pleasures. I call them aligned pleasures that bring us closer to ourselves, that are the opposite of dangerous. And that is like a cup of coffee. It is like sunset. It is like those beautiful trees behind you. It is incense that you're burning. It's right. It's the sound
Right.
of, right? The sound of birds. All of these pleasures are things that we can attune ourselves to tune into more and to play around with a little bit. Play around meaning that I do something with my clients, and I teach this in my talks. It's called pleasure layering, where let's say you're outside and there's some nice birds and you're enjoying that. You can say, okay, what else? What else? What else here is delightful? And then see if you can focus on that additionally and go
Right.
back to the birds. And now it's the birds and it's also the trees. And what's that nice smell? Somebody just made some coffee, right? Speaking, we like
Right.
coffee too,
Right.
right? And so now you've got all these nice things. And then you can even add an affirmation in there. Like, I'm really proud of myself today for doing that.
Right. For taking this time for myself. Right. Be present. That's excellent.
Yeah.
It's a good takeaway.
So I'd say to people to lean into, find what the aligned pleasures are, the ones that are are not controversial, that don't mess you up or mess your life up in any way. Find out what they are, make a list, a long list of all the things that please you, that delight you, that make your heart sing, and then seek them out intentionally and layer them.
That's
Excellent.
yeah, that is great advice. You mentioned birds. I remember once when I was a little kid, I was with my mom and I heard a mourning dove, you know, that kind of that kind of sound. And I said to her, I like that sound. It's really nice, or something like that. And she said, oh, no, don't like it. They're mourning. And I've always felt a little sort of guilty for liking that sound. Just the other, like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I saw two mourning doves together, and clearly it's a mating call. It's part of the mating
Exactly.
dance.
And
And
I thought you meant mulligan. I thought you meant morning. You hear them in the morning, which
oh,
I never thought of sadness. You know what I mean? I never thought, well, there you go. That's my way of thinking. I never go to the sad place.
so it took a bird to teach me that lesson that it's all good. It's fine if I like the sound.
Exactly. Well, that's another one. That's going back to how we were raised and what, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
All right, Laura Zam, thank you so much for sharing
really.
this wonderful information and for doing what you're doing. That's really definitely making the world a much better place.
It
I hope you're
is.
very proud of yourself and you feel good about yourself for what you're doing.
Thank you. And thank you for what you're doing. There's so much bad news in the world, and to just put information out and highlight what people are doing to make the world a better place is critical right now. So critical to get that
Mhm.
out and to help people see the goodness in themselves and in other people. It's so beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
All right, so this has been another episode of A Better World with Julann and Fran and our special guest, Laura Zam. Please like and share this video far and wide, and please join us again next week. Thank you for being here.
Have a great week.
So long.
Thanks.